All right, so now let's create the star background and the galaxy dust. So I'm going to go down to my background and I'm going to add a new layer on top of that background. And I'm going to use the paint bucket. I'm going to make sure I'm on default black and white. And then I'm going to paint that layer to be black. Okay. I'm going to go up to filter. I'm going to go down to noise and I'm going to add some noise. Okay. When I add noise, I want the amount to be 400%. And then I want the distribution. I want a Gaussian distribution and I want it to be monochromatic. So remember, monochromatic means one color. So it's going to take all the RGB and make it into just black and white and gray. Okay. Click OK. So now that's way too many stars. What I'm going to do is I want two different sizes of stars. So I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to duplicate layer. So I'm going to get a second copy of this layer. Again, I could also take this layer, drag it down to the new layer button, and it's going to duplicate the layer for me as well. So now I've got two layers here. For now, I'm just going to hide that top layer. I want to start on the bottom layer first. All right, so I need to blur this a tad so that I get only some of the stars showing. So I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go down to blur, and then I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. It's like a round blur. So once I go to Gaussian blur, I'm going to set this Gaussian blur to 0.5. Okay, so I'm going to type 0.5 down here and click again. Click OK. Again, too many stars. All right, now we're going to use levels. So there's a shortcut to just putting levels directly onto this layer. And it means I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to type L, or if I'm on a Mac, Command L. So Control L, it's going to pop open the layers window. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to drag this black triangle over to get a lot more darkness. And then this little gray triangle is going to get a little bit closer to the white triangle. Okay, so the white and the gray are going to be close. And then I can decide how many stars do I want to see in my galaxy by pulling this black slider over. And I'm gonna go with about that many stars. Okay, click OK. So now I want some slightly bigger stars. So now I'm gonna pop back up. I'm going to go to this second layer that I just duplicated. This time, I'm going to go back to filter. I'm going to go to blur. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. But this time, I want to blur it at 2 pixels. Okay. So slightly bigger blur. I'm going to go back to levels again. So Control L, bring back that levels panel. And then now I'm going to pull the black slider over. Pull the white slider over to where you can see this little mountain. Okay, the more I bring it over, the brighter it gets. But I kind of want it to where the mountain starts going, or the white starts going up. The gray hiker is going to be a little bit closer to the white hiker again. And then I can decide how many bigger stars do I want to see. Okay, so these are the slightly bigger stars. So I'm just going to go there. It's going to just give a little bit more texture to our stars. So there are my stars. Now let's add some galaxy dust. So again, I'm going to add another layer. Okay, I'm just working on the bottom here because everything's in the background. With this layer, I'm going to make sure I'm on black and white default still. Paint bucket, I'm just going to paint it all black. Okay, then I'm going to go up to filter. I'm going to go down to render. And I'm going to render me some clouds. So filter, render clouds. It's going to look like it really screws everything up, but this is what we need to do. So I've got my clouds here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into my layers panel. I'm over here on the right where it says normal. This is my blending mode. This menu will blend the layer that you're on with the layers underneath in different ways. So I'm actually going to go down to blend or color dodge, excuse me. So my blending mode is set to color dodge. Notice it kind of changes what's being shown. I don't see all those clouds anymore because it's blending with the layers underneath. I'm actually going to add a layer and I'm going to drag it underneath the cloud layer, okay, because I need it underneath. Now I'm going to add some color. So I might try like a blue to start with. I'm going to make sure that I grab a paintbrush. I want this brush to be a pretty big brush, okay? So we'll start wide and then we'll go in with some different colors. So maybe up to like 500 or something like that. So I've got a pretty big brush. It'll go all the way up to like, ooh, that's way too big. It jumps up real quickly. So that's good enough for now. So that's a big brush. I want the hardness on my brush to be at 0. Okay. I want a very soft edge. I want to double check my brush and my settings and make sure that none of these checks are check marked. I want it only to be maybe smoothing checked. Okay. So I want to double check that. Now, as I paint, notice I'm painting underneath the color dodge layer. I am able to, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, I turned the opacity down. The opacity is not at 100%. I pulled the see-throughness or the opacity down to about 10%. And now I'm coming in and clicking and dragging my mouse. If you notice, the more I drag over a certain spot, the lighter it's going to get. And I'm going to add some color. And then I might go in and say, I'm going to add maybe some purple up and around this color and kind of go over and start getting some bands of color up in here. I might do a kind of a bilateral kind of color field here. There's some purple. I might go and head on up. Notice I'm kind of going in the light spectrum. So I'm going to just kind of move my color up a little bit. So from purples to some red pinks, and then start blending this out as I go. Again, if it gets too much for you, you can always even just take this layer. I can use the opacity slider up here and I can pull down the opacity on those colors, which might soften it just a tad as you're building this galaxy. All right, play with this. If you get to where you're like, oh, I don't like those colors, I'm going to try these. Like, okay, that was nice. Let's see what happens if I just add another layer and I come in here and maybe I'm going to start with pink in the middle now. Okay. Or I'm going to use this kind of curve here to kind of curve the color to kind of give some different movement to the way that my picture is showing to the viewer. Oh no, I don't like that. What can I do? Maybe I could grab the eraser. Again, make it big. I'm using the bracket keys on my keyboard. I can go and erase in. I have a very soft eraser, so you can really play with how much color and what that color is doing to your planets. You can even pull the opacity down on my eraser to say that, hey, this got a little bright. I just want to tone that down a little bit. All right, so I'm going to tone that down. Tone down the edges a little bit. And be like, oh, you know what? I don't like that one. I like this one. Ooh, I like them together. Oh, that's not bad. All right. And then file, save as. We are almost done. Yippee! Save.